Hi guys, so today I'm going to give you some tips that I have on outlining in Scrivener and then kind of some general outlining tips in addition to that. Don't be surprised when the screen switches to my computer at times because I will be giving you guys examples of Scrivener on my computer. And I have a PC, so it won't look like most of y'all's Scriveners because I feel like most people use Mac and not PC. When I first start a project, I always keep all of my notes online in a place that I can access from any device. So I keep everything in Google Drive and I just have a document. And that way, if I have a random idea, as long as I'm near internet, I can go and put that idea in my pretty little brainstorming thing. I used to just keep it on my computer, but then I would have notes on my phone and then handwritten notes, and it just got crazy. So I just keep a Google document. Once I feel like I'm ready to start outlining that story, I take all of my brainstorming notes and I put them into a note document above my manuscript. And that I think I just title it Brainstorming, and then I'll go through each little piece and incorporate that somewhere throughout the outlining portion of Scrivener. So if it's a setting thing, I'll create a setting profile and insert that little brainstorming bit into the setting. And I basically do this until I get rid of everything in my brainstorming notes, and then if it's extra stuff, I have like an extra things folder. So that way all my brainstorming stuff I can delete it once I'm done with it. My outline, like a lot of people's outlines, start with the really broad strokes first, and that's usually how I want it to start, or some pieces that I have for ideas in the middle, or world building elements I want to include in this scene. So I might have a handful of scenes, or maybe 10 scenes that I know I want to be in the story. One of the really awesome things about Scrivener is that you can view things in corkboard mode, which a lot of people like because it's like a physical outline almost. You can drag and drop the things, you have the title of each scene, and then you can see the synopsis right below it, and then a lot of people just like the visual layout of it. I personally don't outline using the corkboard mode. I prefer the list that I have right here because I don't like in corkboard that it's left to right, top to bottom. When I make physical outlines, for some reason, I go top to bottom, left to right, which sounds similar, but I go down first, not toward the right first. So that's just a little weird quirk I have. So I just like the list view because I can just see it all laid out in the direction that the story is flowing. All right, so some general things with Scrivener really quick. Each folder that you have within your manuscript ends up being a chapter, and then each text document in that folder will be a scene within that chapter. You can also add another layer of folders if you decide that you want parts to your novel. A lot of this is customizable once you go to export or compile your story into a publishable format. So you don't really have to follow chapter, folder, scene, and you don't have to follow that really. Personally, I don't break my manuscript down into chapters until after I have pretty much the whole thing outlined. This is because I used to get hung up and I was just focused too much on trying to get those perfect and try to figure out where the chapter breaks should occur, and it was hindering my ability to continue writing. So I don't even worry about separating into chapters until after I have all of my scenes laid out. And then I start breaking things into chapters. So your next task after you have your bare bones little things that you want to happen in your story is to fill in the gaps. For instance, if I was J.K. Rowling, if only, and I knew that I wanted to start the novel with Harry being a baby, but eventually get him to receiving his letter from Hogwarts, I could create those note cards first and then fill in the gaps. If you have a gap between scenes, you should always ask the who, what, where, when of the scenes before and after that. A lot of times when you break it down in this simple way, you can see the things that you need to bridge between the who. You know, if your character is talking to one person and then they need to go talk to somebody else, okay, how are they going to get there? Can you introduce any elements from the rest of your plot during that time? Just ask questions about pretty much how can you get from point A to point B, and what new elements of the story can you introduce, and then what issues or obstacles can you create for your character in the in-between. So another cool little tidbit that can help you with your outlining organization is to keep your scenes organized with keywords. For instance, if you want to keep track of what scenes your supporting characters are in, you can use their names as some of the keywords. So you can add these keywords in your inspector pane. Like I said, these can be character keywords, setting keywords, or even things like magic or death. You can search for these keywords by selecting the keyword from the project keywords menu. Or searching at the top of your Scrivener window, selecting keyword as your search option. A common question that I get is, how can I develop my story idea into a full novel, or something along the lines of, I just finished my manuscript and I don't feel like it's long enough? The easy answer is to add complexity. If you're watching this video, I'm guessing that you want to outline, or you want to try outlining, or you already outline. If you do outline, but you only outline a little bit, maybe outlining more is your answer. It's important to make sure you put every single scene in your outline. And I know that sounds like a lot if you're not used to doing it, but trust me, it will pay off, because it's easier to see those gaps that you need to bridge, and it's harder to see that and to realize what you need to add to your story if some of it is in your head and some of it is on paper. So even if you've written your manuscript and you didn't use an outline, you might want to try outlining it even though you've already written a majority of it. It's just a lot easier to be able to see from above, a bird's eye perspective of your novel without flipping through 400 pages. The tough part in all of this is to figure out a way to expand your novel without boring the reader. Now, like I've said before, every single word that you write in your manuscript has to have meaning. It has to do something for the story, and not just one thing, but it should do more than one thing. If it just does one thing, you still might bore the reader without intending to, even if the information is important. A reader may also lose interest if they don't see the importance of a scene and know how it plays out for the rest of the plot, or eventually find out how it plays out. So on that note, you have a few options. You can make the scene immediately relevant, you can wait till the end of the novel to make it relevant, or you can do both. You can introduce the issue now and then later find out it has a double meaning, or you can solidify its importance now, wait till the end to do it. So you have three options, basically. That's what I'm trying to get at. So in Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, Harry finds the mirror of Erised, and in this mirror he sees his parents standing right next to him. He has some awesome dialogue with Dumbledore eventually, but this has two purposes. So it's relevant now because we learn some about Harry's history, and then a little bit more of the world because it's magic, hello. This mirror doesn't show Harry winning the Quidditch Cup or the House Cup or moving out of the Dursleys. There's a lot of things that we know Harry wants at this point, but what he really wants, he just wants his parents. He wants to be with his parents. So that shows us that Harry is a good, wholesome person without Rowling ever having to tell us that. So the mirror becomes immediately relevant. But then two, we find out later on that the mirror of Erised is important in Harry being able to find the Philosopher's Stone. So now there's a complexity to Harry finding the stone, and the reader feels satisfied to the point that if they reread it, then they get to that chapter where Harry finds it, and they're just excited because they know what's gonna happen at the end. At least I was, but I'm a Harry Potter freak. So you can apply this model to your own writing. What solution can you show your readers earlier on? How can you weave that into your story? On a different note, if you're writing a fantasy story, what elements of the world can you introduce before? One thing that you really want to avoid while you're outlining and while you're writing is info dumping. One of the ways that you can avoid this is by introducing your world slowly, not all at one time. So how can you introduce some of these things earlier? For example, if your main character is preparing for a huge battle at the end and it just kind of seems a little dry, maybe one of the ways that you can give it a little extra complexity is by introducing chapters and chapters beforehand the fact that you can't do any magic on a moonless night. The main character can then use this information toward their advantage when they're planning for their attack and what they're going to do, because they know their opponent is not going to be able to perform magic, and maybe they're better at it than they are. Adding these complexities to your storyline should not make your storyline confusing. And one of the ways that I like to use Scrivener when I'm trying to add stuff like this is by using icons or color coding or doing some sort of method to highlight the sections that I'm not 100% sure I want to use. So I keep the bare bones of my outline, what I really know that I need, and then I'll kind of go on these little tangents to see how one of these little complexities might unfold throughout the rest of the novel. So don't be afraid to use those icons or those labels so that you don't have to commit to something and then, you know, kind of get a little confused and lost in your own manuscript. My last little tip for you is to pick a plot structure or a model. I really like doing this, and whether you're an experienced writer or you're a new writer, using a model or referring back to some well-known plot structure helps you to realize what your story might be missing. This kind of makes sure that you're meeting all the general requirements of a good story. And your story doesn't have to stick to it. My story doesn't. I start with a 3-act structure, but by the end of it, my story might not really follow the 3-act structure, and that's okay. You're not using it as a formula for success. You're using it as a guideline. A resource I highly recommend you looking into is A Better Novel Project. This girl, Christine, she analyzed Harry Potter, The Hunger Games, and Twilight to see what similarities they have, and it's kind of mind-blowing how similar their plot structures are. They're like all the same. It's crazy. Her master outline includes these character cards and setting cards and theme cards. You can use all of this and create your own template within Scrivener and then use that as a guideline to fill in the gaps for your story. Or you can just go through it. You kind of use it as a brainstorming resource, I guess. So if you're ever stuck in your outlining phase, you can definitely use plot structures or the Better Novel Project to get some inspiration on some elements to your story that you might be missing. All right, that's all I have for you guys today. I hope you found this helpful in some way. If you ever have any questions for me or a topic that you would like for me to cover, just go ahead and drop a line down below, or you can tweet me at Vivien Reis. Subscribe to my channel if you already haven't. I post new writing videos every Wednesday. Also, little note, I am doing my cover reveal for the Elysian Prophecy next week on the 8th of February. So if you're actually a blogger or you have your own website, or even if you don't, if you're just gonna put it on social media, you can sign up to help me reveal my cover, and I will give you 5 more chapters of the Elysian Prophecy in addition to the ones already on my website. That sign up link is down below. Bye guys. I'm so white right now. I need to get some like bronzer or something. I swear I'm flesh toned in real life. I'm sorry I'm so pale, you guys.